I want to introduce you to my next guest, somebody I knew at university. I was leaving as he was arriving, but he was already at that time marked as somebody who would make an impression upon the country that we were all living in. And he went to Otago University when Otago University was, in actual fact, a good university. He headed off to Otago Medical School and he joined the debating club, which is how I got to know him. That's a little bit of the background. We'll talk a little bit more about him now. And I introduce him to the program because I introduce him about Paul Burns and Dr. Roderick Mulgan, the man preaching against abortion on a street corner somewhere, and Dr. Roderick Mulgan, one of the smartest men in New Zealand, on the other. What do they have in common? Let's find out. And Rod Mulgan joins us now. How are you, my friend? Haven't seen you for a long time.
Good morning, Michael. I'm doing very well, thank you. That is very kind of you to introduce me like that, and I do agree with you about Otago University.
Yeah, it's sad, isn't it?
Wonderful place in the 1980s.
Hard to believe where it's gone now, but there you go. Listen, mate, you're also quite unique in another way, Rod. You are, as I understand, the only person in the country who is practicing law and medicine at the same time. You went and did your med degree, and then you trained with a law degree as well.
As far as I know, there's quite a few people who have done both degrees, but they tend to make up their mind to pursue
do one or the other.
Yeah. I'm the only one who can't make up his mind. So,
So you're a GP on one hand, and what do you do? Mostly involved in public law, Rod? Or what?
No, well, public law, yeah, criminal law. So I'm talking to you from the Manukau District Court at the moment. I have a little niche in clean slate matters. I do legal aid, crime. Yeah. That's the sort of thing I do.
And now you've taken on the case of Paul Burns.
Well, there's a little bit of context here because I'm the chairman of the Free Speech Union. So that's the thing that gets us into the story. So the Free Speech Union's been around for several years now, and it defends and generally advocates for the right to express your opinion without being shouted down, without losing your job, without being prosecuted, that sort of thing. So we get quite a few people contacting us saying my free speech rights have been undermined, and not all of those stories pan out. But Mr. Burns is probably the most outrageous one we've had so far. And the context is that I was walking down Lambton Quay, and there was a guy standing there, and he had a sign, a hand-lettered sign, and it said, "I will pay $100 to anybody who can show me that slavery is more evil than abortion." And he had some banknotes taped to the sign. So, you could have that money if you could offer him philosophical justification for that principle. And he was obviously inviting people to debate with him. And people were standing around, generally barracking him that, nothing wrong with abortion. And he was barracking back that, abortion is a great evil. And it's a public debate. Being held by people who want to have public debates. And apparently he does this from time to time. He does in Lambton Quay, he does in Cupid Mall. He's a pro-life advocate, feels very strongly about it, wants to push the message out there. Last week, I got a phone call. It turns out it's exactly the same guy. And what's going on is that he was having one of these public debates, and somebody said to him, abortion is okay because the world is overpopulated. And he said back, well, if that was true, why don't you kill yourself? Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, he doesn't mean that literally. He's doing what debaters have always done, which is to turn the logic of the person's own statement back against them. For that statement, he's been arrested and charged with a crime. Now, I find that hard to believe, but I've got the summary of facts. So the police agree that that's what happened. He said it several times, and he said it with some impact because, he was a little bit worked up and they were having a debate. But that was the context, that somebody had said to him, well, abortion's okay. And he said, well, killing people isn't okay, and if you think that, why aren't you killing yourself? He was trying to show them the absurdity of their own position. Now, how have we got to this point that police officers think that's a crime? How have we got to this point that police have never heard of irony? They don't understand how arguments work.
So let me get this right, Rod. somebody then went from hearing or having engaging Mr. Burns in that conversation and complained, or was there a policeman wandering by and overheard?
I understand somebody rang the police and they took a cell phone video of him saying it. I understand that's how it played out. And the police turned up, they agreed that he'd committed a crime, and they put the handcuffs on, and off he goes to the district court, and his trial is on the 17th of May.
It's beyond absurd. Have you engaged, I'm assuming that you're representing Mr. Burns, are you?
Yes. So I'm going to be the barrister on the day.
Now, your own philosophical view, Rod, I'm trying to remember from university, but you were a libertarian pretty much when I was at university with you. I can't imagine your own.
Libertarian,
Yeah. So you're not representing somebody who shares the same ideals or values as you.
No. His opinion is totally beside the point. It doesn't matter what his opinion is. If you
should be allowed to
stand on the street and you say something vile, you're still allowed to. And if people don't like it, they can keep on walking down Lambton Key.
So what's the charge, though?
Something vile. I mean, this is a perspective.
I get what you're saying. So, but what's the charge here? Is it that he was encouraging people to commit suicide?
He was using words with an intent to offend, which, believe it or not, is on the statute books, although I don't believe it's very often used. And one of the things I'm doing is the researchers have gone off to find out, has this ever been used and in what context? I mean, obviously, even if that's a crime, it's got to be a very high bar, and the law requires that legislation be read consistently with the Bill of Rights. And the Bill of Rights says you have the right to express an opinion.
Yeah. And so somebody then, presumably at the Wellington police station, would have had to have gone through exactly the kind of research that you're doing, presumably to head off to arrest him. They had to be, aware of an obscure piece of what? The Crimes Act, was it?
Summary Offences Act.
Summary Offences Act, right. And then,
most of which is now being repealed by updated legislation, but there are still a few bits lying around and it's still there, so goodness.
Okay, so if it hadn't have been for you, presumably, and the Free Speech Union, none of us would have known that the police could take this kind of moral decision, it would seem, and then decide that somebody should be denied the access to them, or to it.
Yeah, presumably.
But I'm also interested in what your engagement must have been with the police, because surely you would have said to them, shouldn't you reconsider?
So it does seem likely that when this gets to trial, the police won't necessarily proceed with it. It is quite a common experience that the police on the street slap charges on people, and then when the prosecutors get hold of it, they make decisions about which ones are viable. So it's possible things will go that way. I've indicated to the police I want to talk to them along those lines, but generally it's difficult to get somebody to talk to you weeks out about it, and so it'll probably be a conversation on the morning of trial. Are you guys serious? Are you guys really proceeding with this?
But that's an absurd waste of everybody's time in the meantime.
And the citizen, the ordinary citizen, who's been charged with an offence for which the average person finds enormously stressful and humiliating, and has to put up with it right to the point of trial to find out if the police think they've got a case or not.
I'm looking at the Summary Offences Act as I talk to you, Rod. Which section in particular is it that they are alleging he has breached?
I'll just look it up too. Hang on. You can still there?
No. I'll keep on talking to you while you do that.
Keep on talking.
Yeah, I will. Paul Burns is the man's name. The sign Rod took a photo of, and I'm looking at it now, $100 to the first person who proves that slavery is more evil than abortion. Oh, by the way, you get a randomly free chocolate bar as well.
Yes, so
you found
clearly
it?
indicating it's friendly. Yeah, so Summary Offences Act Section 4(1)(b).
Oh, offensive behaviour or language. Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So that would be relatively chilling if you had a view that, and Mr. Burns gets arrested, that would send a message, I would imagine, to everybody who is going to have strong language in a public place to debate a particular proposition, that they will continue to do so if they know they can be arrested.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it has all sorts of implications. If this charge actually stuck, it would have huge implications for our civil life. That as soon as you say something that's obviously not meant literally, the police can turn up with their handcuffs. I mean, that's not the sort of society that we have.